From last-minute winners to moments of pure controversy, the World Cup has produced some of the most iconic scenes in sporting history. These are the greatest World Cup goals in history.
He is an awesome force of nature! Brutal!
And starting at number 25, we roll back the clock to 1986, when Diego Maradona played one of the greatest World Cup campaigns in history, producing 10 goal involvements on his way to lifting the trophy. But one of his most iconic moments of the tournament was a goal that shocked the world in the quarterfinals against England. In the 51st minute, after Maradona dribbled past a couple of players and passed to a teammate, the ball was hacked into the box by an English defender, Steve Hodge. While clearing his lines would have been preferable, it seemed to land in a position for goalkeeper Peter Shilton to claim. The shot stopper extended his arm to punch the ball away with Maradona running towards him. At 5'5", the superstar had no chance of reaching the ball with his head, so he mirrored Shilton's motion and raised his hand to meet the ball and flicked it into the empty net. The game was 1-0 with most of the second half still remaining, and incredibly, something even crazier would happen later in the game, the goal of the century. But we'll get to that later. From one all-time great to another, Cristiano Ronaldo's World Cup record is perhaps the only metric where the Portuguese sensation does not rank among the game's very best players. Despite scoring 8 times in 22 appearances, CR7 has never come particularly close to lifting the trophy, but that doesn't mean he hasn't produced unforgettable moments. In 2018, Portugal faced Spain during the opening game of Group B. Portugal's team was noticeably inferior, and few neutrals gave them a chance of beating their rivals. But there was a caveat: they had Ronaldo. Spain were leading 3-2 with 2 minutes left on the clock, and Portugal on the brink of suffering an opening day defeat when Ronaldo produced one of his greatest international tournament moments. He took an unstoppable 25-yard free kick, swerving it into the right-hand side of the net with David De Gea unable to get anywhere near it. But if Cristiano Ronaldo saved his greatest moments for the Champions League, Ronaldo Nazario saved his for the World Cup, scoring 15 goals in the international tournament. None were as important as his opening goal against Germany in the 0-2 final. The Brazilian lost the previous World Cup final 3-0 to France before spending much of the next 4 years sidelined through injury, with many critics suggesting that his time at the elite level may be over. But R9 somehow returned to fitness for the 0-2 World Cup and was in search of redemption. He had an iconic campaign, already scoring 6 goals to send Brazil to the final. But during the opening 45 minutes, the grand stage appeared a step too big for Ronaldo, as he missed 3 glorious opportunities. However, in the 67th minute, Rivaldo took a long-range shot at goal, which Oliver Kahn uncharacteristically spilled, allowing Ronaldo to tap the ball into the net and send Brazil into the lead. He scored a second goal shortly afterwards, winning the World Cup for Brazil and completing one of the game's greatest ever comeback stories. The trophy lift, 8 goals that tournament, and the Ballon d'Or that was awarded later that year ensured that R9 would be remembered as a true footballing icon for generations to come. While that night felt like it was all about one man, Argentina's second goal against Serbia in the 06 World Cup was about just every player on the team because they made 26 passes before scoring. After playing 25 beautiful 1- and 2-touch passes, Crespo backheeled the ball to Esteban Cambiaso, who smashed the ball into the net. Some even dubbed Argentina's football during the 06 World Cup as the birth of tiki-taka, as their possession-based football was played with an intricacy that the sport had never seen before. While a young Lionel Messi did not feature in the 26-pass goal, the 06 tournament was the first World Cup of his career. He'd go on to rewrite the history books later on in his career, but we'll get to that after watching some more crazy World Cup moments. Back to Brazil's 0-2 World Cup winning campaign. If there was one player who received the majority of the plaudits alongside R9, it was Ronaldinho. It was the young Paris Saint-Germain star's first World Cup tournament, and few fans outside of the French capital in Brazil knew of his unique talent. But after making 3 goal involvements in the first 4 matches, Ronaldinho was considered a major contender for the tournament's breakout star. His performance against England during the quarterfinals ensured that nobody forgot his name. After producing a sublime assist for Brazil's first goal of the game, Ronaldinho lined up a free kick to give his nation a chance of getting into the lead. Many assumed that the Samba star would cross the ball into the box, but England's goalkeeper, David Seaman, naively wandered out of his goal to meet any lofted pass to Brazil's attackers. Whether Dino meant it or not, the ball swerved harshly over the goalkeeper into the net to establish Brazil a 2-1 lead. England are no strangers to shocking goals during the latter stages of World Cup tournaments, but this time, the goal wasn't given. The Three Lions faced Germany in the last 16 of the 2010 World Cup. The Germans were clearly superior and dominated the game during the opening stages. As the first half approached its conclusion, the score was 2-1 to Germany when Jermaine Defoe nudged the ball to Lampard. The Chelsea star did the impossible and hit the ball over Manuel Neuer's head, bouncing under the crossbar and over the line. Lampard wheeled away in celebration, only to discover that the referee hadn't awarded the goal. Had the goal been given, England would have been level at 2-2, but ended up losing the game 4-1. It was one of the tournament's most controversial moments and a large part of the reason that goal line technology was introduced in the following tournament. Since goal line technology was introduced in 2014, VAR was implemented for the 2018 tournament, and with good reason. Hand of God goals, balls that crossed the line but weren't given, and shocking referee calls dominate the early stages of our list. We can't forgive refereeing errors for Maradona's goal against England and Lampard's ghost goal against Germany, but how the officials didn't spot that Carlos Tevez was standing in an offside position when he scored against Mexico during the 2010 tournament is unbelievable. After the goalkeeper spilled the ball in the 25th minute, Lionel Messi tapped the ball to Tevez, who was standing around 3 yards offside. The forward headed the ball into the net, half expecting to see the linesman raise his flag. Somehow, the goal was given as Argentina went on to win the last 16 tie 3-1, continuing Mexico's curse at that stage of the tournament. Robin van Persie's header against Spain in 2014 was as shocking as Tevez's against Mexico in 2010, but this time it was for pure genius rather than due to controversy. It was the opening game of the tournament and the first time either side had played a World Cup match since their violent 2010 final. The Dutch were seeking revenge, but went behind due to a Xabi Alonso penalty during the game's early stages. However, Robin van Persie's Puskas-nominated leaping header before halftime leveled the score. The goal was like no other scored on the world stage. Daley Blind played an exquisite lofted pass into the Spanish box, but it looked troubling for RVP to get under control of. The Dutchman ran 20 yards to produce a unique diving header that looped over Iker Casillas' head. The game ended 5-1, providing the Dutch with redemption for the 2010 final. Roger Mila's corner flag dance celebration during the 1990 World Cup made him one of the tournament's cult heroes. At the 1994 competition, he strengthened his legacy further by becoming the oldest player to score a World Cup goal. At 42 years and 39 days old, Mila came off the bench against Russia to score his 5th World Cup goal, breaking his own record as the tournament's oldest goal scorer. Given he was now in his early 40s, he didn't have the energy to produce another iconic corner flag celebration, but the fans back in Cameroon still celebrate his greatness today. Legend. Speaking of stars which gave lesser footballing nations iconic moments, Scotland's Archie Gemmill scored one of the greatest solo efforts in the tournament's history to secure an unlikely victory against the Netherlands near the peak of their total football powers. In the 68th minute, Gemmill played a 1-2 with Kenny Dalglish and wriggled through the left flank of the Dutch defense to score a breathtaking goal. The game ended 3-2 for Scotland, but the British nation were still eliminated from the group stages on goal difference. While Gemmill's brace against the Dutch were the only World Cup goals of his career, the next strike on our list broke Ronaldo Nazario's record for most career goals scored by one player at the tournament. It came in the 12th minute of Germany's iconic 7-1 2014 semifinal win over Brazil, as Klose scored a rebound which wasn't extraordinary, typified his extraordinary career in which he was always dependable when his nation needed him most. Germany never lost a World Cup match in which he scored, and that certainly didn't change during the 2014 semi-final. While Brazil have won the tournament on 5 occasions, they've still suffered some humiliating moments. And if the 2014 semi-final was the worst of the bunch, then the 98 final defeat to France follows closely behind in second or third place. But that night wasn't just about Brazilian failure. The French were magnificent, and led by one genius midfielder, Zinedine Zidane. The midfielder was gracious with the ball at his feet and taught the Brazilians a footballing lesson with his control, flair, and passing range. He netted twice that night, but neither goal was scored with the finesse many would associate with Zidane. He scored both goals with his head, demonstrating that he had a different, more industrious side to his game. While Zidane was a magician on the ball, he was also capable of being a dog and sticking his head in where it hurts. He'd use his head in another World Cup final 8 years later, this time to remarkably different effect. But we'll get onto that night after we've seen some more great World Cup goals. Few greater goals have been scored during recent tournaments than Luka Modric's group stage long-range strike against Messi's Argentina in 2018. With Croatia already leading 1-0 going into the final 10 minutes, Modric picked up the ball at 30 yards from goal, shimmied one away, then the other, opened up a shooting opportunity before unleashing a long-range effort past Willy Caballero. The goal helped to secure a 3-0 win on the night, producing one of Croatia's greatest World Cup wins. The underdog European nation went on to make an unlikely charge to that competition's final, resulting in Modric becoming the first player to take the Ballon d'Or away from Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi in 10 years. Based on Modric's goal against Messi's Argentina alone, he deserved it. Takuma Asano's 83rd minute goal against Germany in the 2022 World Cup may not have won him the Ballon d'Or, but it sent Japan utterly berserk. The opening day Group E fixture got underway in predictable style. Germany opened the scoring in the 33rd minute thanks to an Ilkay Gundogan penalty. The four-time winners looked set to secure the points until Ritsu Duan equalized for Japan 15 minutes from time. Even had the Japanese only drew the game, it would have been among the greatest results in their history. But when Asano expertly controlled a lofted ball as if he were prime Dennis Bergkamp and found the back of the net to put Japan up 2-1, he became a national icon. Japan held on to complete a late turnaround and win the game before eventually progressing to the knockout stages. As for Germany, they suffered an embarrassing group stage exit. It was a similar story in 1998 as reigning champions Brazil faced Norway. Given that the Scandi nation had only previously participated at 2 World Cup tournaments, nobody gave them a chance against a team that featured R9, Rivaldo, and Roberto Carlos. However, it took longer than anticipated for Brazil to take the lead, with Bebeto opening the scoring 12 minutes from time. But the Norwegians weren't willing to give up. An 83rd minute goal from Tore Andre Flo leveled the game before Norway were awarded a penalty 5 minutes later. Kjetil Rekdal stepped up to take the spot kick with the opportunity to score the most iconic goal in his nation's history. He smashed the ball to the keeper's right, finding the back of the net. The next greatest World Cup goal is not a story of an underdog, but one of a star establishing himself on the world stage. By the time of the 2018 World Cup, Kylian Mbappe was already one of football's hottest prospects, but he was tipped to eclipse the careers of Messi and Ronaldo after his performance against Argentina. 10 minutes into the game, the 19-year-old picked up the ball midway inside his own half and steamed past several Argentine defenders. He carried the ball into the box like an Olympic sprinter, eventually being taken down inside the box to win the penalty that put France 1-0 up in a match that finished 4-3. France are arguably the greatest international team of the last 30 years, having won 2 World Cup trophies and reaching the final on 2 additional occasions. But one of their most iconic goals came in a World Cup final that they lost. In 2006, Zidane was on the brink of retirement, but played a blinder during the World Cup to take France to the final against Italy. In the 7th minute, Zizou scored a Panenka from the penalty spot, which bounced off the bar before crossing the line. The Frenchman looked set to win the World Cup in his final match as a pro, but Italy equalized, forcing the game to extra time, where he famously headbutted Materazzi and received a red card before watching his team lose in the penalty shootout that followed. If 2006 was heartbreaking for France, then 2022 was agonizing because Lionel Messi's brilliance saw them lose another World Cup final. Like Zidane 16 years earlier, Messi was playing sensationally in what looked set to be his final World Cup. He scored a penalty after 22 minutes to put Argentina into the lead, but after a crazy French comeback, normal time ended 2-2, forcing the game to extra time. In the second half of extra time, Messi scored arguably the most iconic tap-in in history to make the score 3-2 and put Argentina on the brink of history. Once again, France equalized before Argentina won on penalties, securing Messi's legacy as the GOAT. While it was not a complete one-man show, Messi's 2 World Cup final goals dragged his nation to win the final. And as Messi celebrated, Mbappe watched on gloomily. Had France won that final, Mbappe may have had the greatest World Cup legacy of any player in football history. He scored a hat-trick to take Argentina all the way to penalties, including a volley from the edge of the box to square the game after 80 minutes. At many stages during that night, it looked like it would be Mbappe's night. He'll have to make do with scoring one of the most iconic strikes in the tournament's history and becoming the first player to score a total of 4 World Cup final goals. But while Mbappe's goal against Argentina was memorable for being clutch as much as it was for being a moment of world-class skill, Bergkamp's against the same nation in 1998 is all about the technique. During the quarterfinals, Frank de Boer played a long ball uncharacteristic of the Dutch national team. The pass progressed the Netherlands up the pitch, but turning it into an immediate goal-scoring opportunity looked impossible until Bergkamp did the unthinkable. With the ball traveling over his head, he controlled it effortlessly, took a touch to get past the defender, and half-volleyed it into the net to score a goal so artistic that it belongs in an art gallery. The goal was so great that supporters know it as a moment of extraordinary skill, but what is less known is that it was a 90th minute winner to send the Dutch to the semi-finals, making it almost as clutch as Mbappe's goal in 22. Scoring a goal better than Bergkamp's against Argentina is practically impossible, but we believe Maxi Rodriguez's goal against Mexico in 06 required a slightly higher level of technique. Things were getting desperate for the Argentines, and a penalty shootout appeared likely. Then, the ball was crossed to Rodriguez, who was standing on the edge of the box and seemingly not in a shooting position. His best option appeared to be to control the ball with his feet and to beat his man to play across into the box. But out of nowhere, Rodriguez controlled the ball with his chest and volleyed the ball into the net, scoring a truly unstoppable goal. The insane finish predates XG models, but if it didn't, we think it would have been a lower probability than any other goal scored in the World Cup. Whereas Iniesta's World Cup winning goal against the Netherlands in 2010 could have been scored by an average player in an ordinary game, but to finish so coolly in a game of such magnitude can only be done by an all-timer. The final between Spain and the Netherlands was supposed to be an exhibition of football artistry, but turned into a brawl, as strong challenges were made by both teams. Neither side were able to find an opening during normal time, and so the final went to extra time. With minutes left on the clock, the final looked destined to go to penalties. It was almost unthinkable for the Spanish to leave a final that many believed had their name written on it to go to the lottery of a penalty shootout. But Spain's blushes were spared when Cesc Fabregas passed the ball to the unmarked Iniesta, who finished from inside the box to put Spain 1-0 up. They held on to their lead and won their first World Cup trophy, while Iniesta scored one of the most memorable tournament-winning goals in history. Iniesta, Bergkamp, Mbappe, Messi, and Zidane all share one trait. While they were the talisman, they played for world-class nations that might still get the job done without them. But when Colombia faced Uruguay in the last 16 of the 2014 World Cup, there was one player on the pitch who was head and shoulders above everyone else: James Rodriguez. It took a moment of genius to separate the two South American nations. The ball dropped to James Rodriguez 30 yards out, facing away from the goal. He expertly controlled it with his chest, swiveled round, and volleyed a Puskás-nominated goal into the left corner. Rodriguez's goal was out of this world, and it put him alongside the gods of the sport, as it has often been ranked among the greatest World Cup goals of all time. But while Rodriguez's strike might have showcased the best technique the World Cup has ever seen, there's still more iconic finishes to come. And few players in world football can claim to be as iconic as Pele, aka the original GOAT. The Brazilian striker scored 12 World Cup goals and lifted the trophy 3 times, but the first goal that he scored as a 17-year-old against Sweden in the 1958 final is the most memorable. The ball was crossed to Pele, but unlike any ordinary forward of the era, he didn't make a hopeful attempt to head the ball into the net. Instead, he controlled it with his body, showcased some Brazilian flair to dink it over a defender, and volleyed that ball into the net to put Brazil 3-1 up. They won the final 5-2, with Pele adding his second before the final whistle. It was a legendary goal for a player of any age, let alone someone that would still be in school in most parts of the world. The goal was a clear sign that the man who'd be considered football's GOAT for decades had been born. But if anyone in the 20th century were ever going to rival Pele's GOAT status, it was Maradona, the player that we started this list with. The goal that he scored with his hand against England in the '86 World Cup threatened to tarnish his legacy. How could a player so legendary commit an act of cheating that was so shameful? But everyone outside of England forgot about their disappointment in Maradona when he scored a goal so brilliant that the one he scored with his hand felt insubstantial. The forward did a pirouette inside his own half and drove with the ball. He weaved past two defenders before going around the goalkeeper and putting the ball into the empty net to score the greatest individual goal in World Cup history. Maradona redeemed himself. Argentina won 2-1 with two of the craziest goals the game has ever seen and eventually lifted the trophy with their star man producing an iconic campaign. While Pele lifted the trophy on 3 occasions and scored 12 goals, he never produced a single moment as spectacular as Maradona's against England.